Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and I know I said I would upload every second day in December. However, I was a bit lazy the past 2 days, so I didn't upload anything, I didn't film anything. But I am back now, so who cares? Today I want to talk to you about my reading and channel goals and plans for 2022. So what we're gonna do is first I'm gonna tell you all about what I plan for my channel in 2022. And then after that we're gonna talk about my reading goals as well as some reading plans that I have in terms of backlist books that I want to get to. I obviously already did my anticipated releases videos, so I won't talk about any of those books in this video. If you're interested in those, then I will leave the link down below and up there. And so yeah, let's get started talking about my channel goals. So I gotta be honest, I don't have that many channel goals or plans that are any different from previous years. It's mostly the same goals with some, specifics for the year. So as always, I don't have a subscriber goal because I gotta be honest, having a subscriber goal just depresses me. If I have a reading goal and I don't reach it, it's all down to me. It's like I decide to abandon it, it's whatever. But with subscriber goals, of course, it's to a certain degree outside of my realm of being able to influence it. So no subscriber goals once again this year. In terms of video goals or making videos, I of course want to continue on, especially making Let's Talk Culture and Fantasy videos. I know I didn't upload too many of them this year, which for those of you who might be new to my channel might have arrived within the past half year, which is the amount of time that I haven't made those videos. My Let's Talk Culture and Fantasy series is a series of videos where I use what I learned in my bachelor degree of cultural and social anthropology and I apply it to fantasy fiction. I either talk about a specific culture or a specific aspect of society within a fantasy series and analyze that, or, which I do much more frequently, I talk about how specific societal cultural aspects are written and handled within fantasy series. So if you haven't seen any of the videos in that series, I will leave the playlist link down below and up there. As I said, I haven't done too much in that direction this year, mostly because, I don't know, my standards have just gotten higher. And usually what I did was I just sat down and filmed my thoughts as they came to me, with of course thinking about it beforehand but not really writing any notes even. And so, I just don't want to do that anymore, but not doing that comes with procrastination, so that's fun. That's also the reason why one of the sub-series within that series of videos, my sexuality and gender in fantasy series, has not been finished. I uploaded the first video in June, which was sexuality in fantasy. My second and third video, so gender in fantasy and gender roles / spaces in fantasy, have not been uploaded yet. So that is definitely a goal for 2022 to get those up. Another specific video that I want to film in that series, which I have mentioned wanting to do in a few videos, and quite a lot actually, is Orientalism in fantasy. And so I do want to do that, and that is my big video goal for 2022. However, what I want to do with that video is I want to film a proper video essay. So I'm gonna have to do some research and reread some series. So we'll get to that a little bit later in the video when I talk about my reading plans. Aside from that, in terms of specific videos I want to upload in 2022, I did not get to finish my international fantasy video this year because I didn't finish all the books that I had on my TBR for that. So that video will be pushed into 2022. I might even do 2 videos because at this point I have over 10 books that I read, which I think might be a bit too much to talk about in one video and still give every single one of the books its proper spotlight. So yeah, that video, and then of course I also want to continue on reviewing every single adult fantasy written by a female author or a genderqueer author that I read this year. So, well, not this year, next year. I have almost managed it. I still have a few reviews left to do for this year, so I want to continue on doing that, of course. In terms of adult fantasy written by women and genderqueer folks, I also, of course, do want to continue on with my book club. For those of you who don't know, most of you probably do, in September of 2020 I started a book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, and in that book club we buddy read one book a month, and that book is in the adult fantasy genre and written either by a woman or a genderqueer person. And I just found so many great books because of that book club. The concept is mostly I upload a poll around the middle of each month with 4 books, and then everyone in the book club gets to choose which book to read in the next month. And so if you're interested in joining, I will leave the Discord down below, I will leave the Twitter down below, like all the links to the book club are down below. And so yeah, goal once again is, which I didn't manage this year because I'm socially awkward, to get Discord to be a bit more active. For that I would need to be active or start being more active, which again haven't managed yet because I'm an awkward noodle. But yeah, so get the Discord to be a bit more active, and some changes in the book club are that it won't just be high fantasy anymore, but just in general fantasy, because I just want to broaden it up a bit. And so we might also read some urban fantasy and so on. So that's the book club. I'm gonna be organizing my first read along. We'll get to that in the reading plans portion of this video. But yeah, I'm gonna be organizing my first read along, and if you're interested in joining, I'm using the book club Discord to organize, as well as the book club Twitter to organize. So yeah, I think that was it mostly for my channel plans. If I remember anything, I will just go back. But yeah, that was that so far, and now let's continue on with my reading plans. So first of all, I don't really intend to officially set myself a reading goal for 2022 because, I don't know, after reading 200 books this year, setting myself a goal of like 60 seems a little bit silly to me. But also I don't want to set myself a goal of any more books because I don't want to stress myself out. So yeah, I don't know. I might still set my reading goal for 60 or for 100 books, but definitely not anymore. If anything, my reading goal for 2022 is to try and not read 6 to 7 books at a time, because that just exhausts me, and to try and not read more than 10 to 12 books a month, because again, that exhausts me. I would love it if I could manage to stay under 10 books every month in 2022, which I know sounds silly. It's kind of like, haha, I read so much, it's exhausting to me. That is not what I intend to say, but I just have noticed that, you know, when I read less books, or the way I read books in the previous months, not previous months, previous years, I still read a lot, but you know, the kind of middle ground of the books that I felt kind of like, yeah, I enjoyed them about, they just stayed in my mind way more than this year. This year I really only remember the standout books. Even with those books, I'm like, wait a second, I read that this year, I thought it was last year. So next year I want to tone it down a little bit again, which we'll see how that goes, because I do have quite a few books that I really want to read. In terms of monthly reading challenges or TBRs that I have for myself, I of course don't have my physical TBR jar anymore because I got my TBR Zero this year. TBR Zero meaning I don't own any books that I owned before 2021. So that's very nice, and so in 2022 I want to more so start growing my TBR, my physical TBR again, that I have more books on my TBR. If I have nothing else to read, that I can just go, you know, I want to pick this out. Then I am going to continue with my series TBR jar. In here I have all the series that are on my shelves that are unfinished and that I still do intend to finish. And so I will, of course, once again, every month pull a series from this TBR jar and then read the next book within that series in that month. Then I also want to continue on with my general TBR jar, which holds my Goodreads TBR. This is less I have to read these books and more of a I will pull a book per month from this TBR jar, and if I don't read it, I think about if I still want to read it, if I still want to keep it on my TBR, or if I actually have lost interest in a book long ago anyway, because I think everyone can relate that the Goodreads TBR has a lot of books added to it, but we often forget which books are on there. So yeah, that's the thing with my general TBR jar. And then the other thing, but I won't have a TBR jar for that I want to do is I want to read at least 6 non-fiction books this year. If possible, even 12. I started reading more non-fiction this year, especially non-fiction related to my studies. So far, I used to always just be too exhausted by what I had to read for uni, that I just didn't want to read any non-fiction in my free time. But that has changed quite a bit, so I do want to get down my non-fiction TBR this year. If you have seen my non-fiction bookshelf tour that I did earlier this year, you will know that like 90% of those books are unread. So I do want to read quite a few of those books, and the reason why I said 6 books in the year is because I just want to dedicate 2 months per book, because I do have quite a few chunky books on there as well, like 600 plus pages, and I don't want to force myself to read them in a year, because I don't think that's very good when it comes to nonfiction, because, you know, you do want to retain what you read in a different way than fiction. And my battery is blinking, so let me quickly remedy that and then I'll be back. I am back, and I have one last thing in terms of general reading plans before we get into my specific reading plans with specific books I have on my TBR for 2022. And the last thing I want to say is that I want to continue reading mostly books by women and people from marginalized communities. And not because I think there's an agenda, or I think they especially need to be pushed, even though I do also think that, you know, they don't get enough of a spotlight a lot of times. But the nice thing is that I think that, but then it also just so happens that those are the books that have the biggest likelihood of me ending up loving them. So it's just nice that I read them and that I then look, I'm talking about the adult fantasy genre by the way mostly, and that I then look at books that are way hyped by white cishet male authors, and to be honest, I'm just not interested in them anymore, and it's just, it's really nice. So I definitely, once again with my reading plans, will focus on women, BIPOC and queer authors, which is just, it's just what interests me the most, okay? It is what it is. And then also this year I do have the goal, I do want to get to a solid 50-50 between white and BIPOC authors. This year I did not quite manage. I will talk about it in my stats video, because I had to focus, or I focused a lot on reading my physical TBR, which was only white authors, because I had already read all the marginalized authors on my physical TBR earlier. So, you know, that kind of very much skewed my reading towards white authors, and I want to have a solid 50-50, if not more BIPOC authors than white authors in 2022. And I also do want to once again read more queer authors. I think with queer authors it's a lot harder than with white authors because, of course, I mean, we've had that discussion a lot on Twitter. I have had the discussion on my channel in a video that with queer authors, yes, we do want to read them, but we also don't want to force someone else to come out for writing a queer book and not being a queer author. Basically, I want to read more marginalized authors in 2022, and to be honest, I don't think that's gonna be that much of a problem for me. Now moving on to specific books I want to read in 2022. Let's start with the books I want to reread for my read-along, and that is A Chorus of Dragons by Jenn Lyons, starting with The Ruin of Kings. I only have the second book here because I lent the first book out. And there's not that much to say about this series. I want to reread everything before the fifth book comes out in 2022, and I thought I'd take some of you along on the ride. If you want to know all the details on the read along, I will leave it in the description box down below and up there. So yes, that is the first reread. Second reread and then first time read I have is The Realms of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. I have read the first 3 series within Robin Hobb's Realms of the Elderlings. I have read the Farseer trilogy, I have read the Live Ship Traders, and I have read the Tawnyman trilogy. I still have to read the Dragonwild Chronicles, I believe is the 4th series, and I still have to read The Fitz and the Fool. The reason why I want to read this is because I made it through the entirety of The Wheel of Time. And I enjoyed Robin Hobb's books more than I did the Wheel of Time books, so I just feel like I now gotta finish this series as well. Even though I had said that while I enjoy the books, I don't enjoy them enough to read a whole 7 books still. So yeah, I just want to continue on, especially since in the past 2 years, so many of my mutuals on Twitter have read it, and all of them, without exception, have loved the series, and I'm just like, I don't know what I was on that I didn't enjoy it. Why didn't I enjoy it? Maybe I need to give it another try and see if I enjoy it more this time. So that is what I'm going to do. The last reread is in connection to my Orientalism in fantasy video, and that is A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. Martin. I want to reread this series and take a closer look at how Essos is portrayed within this series and how the Dothraki are portrayed within this series. And then I want to analyze that in my Orientalism in fantasy video. For that video, by the way, in terms of non-fiction, I am also reading, of course, Orientalism by Edward Said, who is the definitive person who coined the term Orientalism. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to read this. I already just, you know, leafed through this book, and pretty much on every single page there's just some quote or something that's just so poignant and perfect, and I love it. And then I have 2 series to finish that have top priority for me in 2022. The first is Joe Abercrombie. I mean, it's not really a series. I want to read his standalones and then the Age of Madness trilogy within the First Law world. And so I didn't get to it this year. I only read the First Law trilogy this year, so I want to continue on in 2022 with his books because I did enjoy them and I do want to know where he goes with his writing. Then the last books slash series I have to talk about is, funnily enough, another series that I put on my books I want to read in 2021 video, because I did it with the First Law as well, and with both of those series I was like, I want to read at least the first book and see how I enjoy it. And obviously I did that for both of these series, and I enjoyed both of them enough to put them definitively on my to finish pile for 2022. But anyways, the last series I'm talking about is the Memoirs by Lady Trent series by Marie Brennan. I'm currently reading the 2nd book and highly enjoying it. I also already own the 3rd book. The 1st book, by the way, is A Natural History of Dragons. And so yeah, we'll see if I will maybe still read this one in December, but even if I do, I still have 2 books left in the series to read. So yeah, and that was it for a probably very long video. Leave all of your thoughts on my plans on any of the books that I talked about in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. The links to my social media as well as to everything read along book club that I mentioned in this video will be left down below, so definitely go and check out the description box. And with all of that said, I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!